So this is a meeting of the Executive Committee of EDA. First order is roll call. Brown here.
Harold here. Wolf is here.
Jory.
Martin is here. Yes.
Okay. We are here. We have Joe Petty is here, Executive Director. And we have members of the press and one member of the Board of Supervisors. So first order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to it? Hearing none, I think we can do a voice vote here. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Aye.
Any nays? There are none. The agenda is adopted. We're going to start with an open session. I'm just going to move the town of Front Royal EDA relations to third in doing that. But I want to link the strategic plan and the agenda for February 25. It has been a while since we have updated our strategic plan. We've had a number of changes to our situation. We have a new executive director. We don't have an administrative assistant. The town has created its own EDA. There are just a whole variety of things that are moving parts in addition to changes in the interest of companies coming here. We seem to be getting a lot of interest, which is terrific as we move forward. It's just time to do that. I thought I would ask Jim to focus on one aspect of the strategic plan. One of the things that we will need to be doing at some point soon, I don't have a date yet, but is coming up with a budget for EDA and presenting that before the Board of Supervisors. But obviously that depends to some degree on our strategic vision. So I've asked Jim if he can have at least a draft of what the budget might look like for next week's meeting, a week from today. And then in March, to look at updating the strategic plan and then having a presentation of it at the March meeting if we're able to do it. So with that, Jim, maybe just in terms of things that we would want to cover in the budget request, maybe just focus on aspects of the strategic plan.
Yeah, we've been talking to Matt almost every week now, and he's helping us with everything.
This is Matt Robinson.
Yeah, in the county staff, and he's been helping us. Sorry, I'm peering over the chair with understanding both the process and the procedure, but then also we're now at the stage where we can start getting into the amounts. What are we going to spend on this, that, and the other thing? One of the areas we have talked about that's been pretty fluid the last 12 months has been our marketing budget. Our staff costs are down, and so we think, this is all up to the powers that be, that we can take some of the saved money and put it into marketing, because our purpose broadly is to go out and market the county to the world out there and get more people in to make more money for the county. So that's an example of one thing that we want to look at, both in terms of the budget and in terms of the strategic plan. It's a question of where we put our emphasis. Another thing is a detail, but I'm very happy about this. The county has agreed that we are going to have the supervisors approve a payment schedule to the banks on all of the loan repayments. There are 3 loans floating around, they're going to be consolidated, that's all been done. If the supervisors are able to approve the loan schedule, they can do 1 approval a year, and that speeds up the process. Every month, then the payment just becomes routine because you've already approved it, and the staff know, and we know what that payment's going to be in advance. So that's an example of it. It's a detail, but it's an important detail for the county. We've been hit with late fees as high as $4,000 before that we've argued over and wrestled and tried to get rid of. For the most part, we've been able to get rid of those. Another aspect of the strategic plan, as Jeff said, is we talked a lot about tourism in our original plan, and we think, this is up to this board, we think that we can reduce the emphasis, keep it there as an issue, but reduce the emphasis because the Front Royal EDA is going to be heavily involved with downtown restaurants, attractions, and getting people to come out here, tourism writ large. So that's another update. And then we've got a lot of mechanics and details like the audit having been finished for 18 and 19, and the audit soon to be underway for 2020. So all of that's in the plan. What I will do, and Tori, you're on the phone there, I will send everyone what I call a red line version of the plan. We are now in version 5, so you'll get a draft. It's not a rough draft, it's a pretty good draft to work with, and then we can work through it. An open question is whether the board wants to spend a half a day in a kind of a work session to do that, getting through stuff a lot faster just by talking about it for a couple of hours rather than 100 emails back and forth.
I would certainly be in favor of that. So.
Jim, what was that red line version you're talking about?
It's now version 5
Of the strategic
of the strategic plan.
Thank you.
Do that sometime in March.
Any questions from anybody? There are a lot of details in that thing, obviously, but
a lot has happened in the market since that plan was developed, and that plan was developed with certain elements and transactions occurring and certain goals. Is it something that you need to take a wholesale relook at, given what has transpired over the last 2 years, or is this something that we maybe just need to amend certain sections, as you mentioned, with the tourism aspect of it, and maybe focusing on specific properties as opposed to more of a global outreach or global reach?
this is dangerous. I'm just going to answer off the cuff with what my impression is. The numbers may have changed so much that it would be a failure of our parts to do our duty if we didn't look at those numbers. So if a building has moved from, quick example, if a building has moved 10 or 20% up, that's one thing. If a multi-million-dollar building has doubled in value, that can have a major impact on what we think is a priority and what we do first, second, third. So I would think that it's worth talking about that, and this is back to our issue of should we have appraisals done, or if not a formal appraisal, should we have estimates done of our property's values? That's a good question.
Yeah, my sense is probably, that we ought to take a look at it, because I think that there's been just so many changes, that we ought to be looking at the entire thing. By the time we have the working session though, maybe we've narrowed it to say, here are ones that are still good, and then here are the ones where we really want to focus our time.
Yeah, but I mean, structurally, not only in the market, but just administratively.
Yes.
In the support.
And to add to that point, what's known as Royal Phoenix, I think of it as ABTAX, but
Yeah.
the large undeveloped property, which has enormous issues and qualifications attached to it. You can't dig down into the dirt, you can't do this, you can't do that. We are now talking about having a comprehensive understanding of that piece of ground so that we can better define what cannot be done and then we can talk about what we might like to do within that box of what can be done. We've had proposals, somebody may want to put in a swimming pool. Well, guess what? You can't dig into the dirt. Or somebody else may want an ice cream shop. Well, you can't serve food. I mean, some of these things we sort of know on the back of the envelope, but we don't have a defined, detailed plan, and that's something that I think we really have got to have.
So, if I'm not mistaken, and Jory, I'm gonna throw this your way. If you
She's
still
not,
want to
we've lost
She
her.
drops? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So you can assign it to her because she's not here.
Yeah, well, no, but we had already assigned, the Avtex expert.
Yes.
And maybe you were one of those assignees.
I said I'd like to dig into
Oh,
it
okay.
too, but she took the lead on
Yeah,
it.
okay.
Yes, that's
So-
my memory was.
Okay, so you guys, two were working in
Yeah.
tandem. Okay.
Is that something that we, I think I probably need to ask her whether or not we can put Avtex on the agenda for next week. Whether
Yes.
she has a summary. There's actually a couple of pretty nice summaries already in the agreements that we have as to what you can and can't do with 117 acres. There is essentially, at least as far as I understand it right now, almost nothing we can do with the conservation area. We can put in and use paths as long as it's natural. You're not putting concrete or
Walking paths.
yeah, but walking paths to go through that area. But in talking with the supervisor of Parsons, which does oversees the conservation area, even putting solar panels, since we've talked about bringing somebody in, may be problematic. It's that they're allowed, but there's no place to put them there.
And it is also true, I found this odd, but it's instructive of how delicate the situation is. You can't plant trees that get bigger than a certain height. When they get that big, they have to be cut down and disposed of properly.
And anything that's over 6 inches in diameter. Also, you can't put anything that would obstruct their ability to mow, so that probably precludes things like solar panels. So some of the initiatives that we've done, it's important that we understand what we can and can't do there. Greg and I are gonna go meet it sometimes with the supervisor of Parsons. We just have to get up a time and go meet with him. But very, very nice guy, I've talked to him. And Joe, of course, you're anything like that, you're part of that, so.
So is the goal, in its most simplistic form, is to basically have a matrix that says can do, can't do, yes, no, zoning restrictions, zoning classifications.
I would say that's an easy way to put it, yes. Yeah.
Global covenants that kind of funnel down to,
Or a green, yellow, red.
Yeah, sure.
Here's the green list, here's the red list, here's the longer.
My sense is that where we probably will focus is on the very first area that you talked about, which is the marketing budget. That for purposes of the EDA budget, that's probably the area that we'd want to articulate things. I think it's marketing would be one, and then secondary is going to be maintenance and improvement. So for example, Suite A here in 400 Kendrick, a terrific space, but it needs work on the roof, perhaps a new roof. It needs to be rehabbed inside to a degree. But it's a beautiful space that we could rent and potentially make money at. So those are all things that I think are things that we want to at least wrestle with to say, yeah, we want to at least try to get funding for doing those things and to anticipate them. Easier, I think, to go and try to get it in the beginning than to go back later and say, okay, we may not get all of it, but we might at least be asking for things that we think are important.
Yeah, I like to focus on this, really to be the top of the strategic plan as it relates to maybe tasks under one specific heading. I mean, the board knows, and unfortunately, we talk about a lot of this in closed, just by virtue of the
Right.
transactions that we have, but a lot, when I say a lot, probably a handful, I can count them on my hand, of people that are dipping their toe in the water regarding the Avtech site. So there is interest on that site.
Well, this would be, I can envision a future where we have done our comprehensive review of the Avtech site. We've combined that with our marketing, and we're actually pushing the best foot forward and saying to the world, hey, here are 3 or 4 things that you can do, come on down.
Right, yeah, I think that
And I don't
that's,
think we're doing that right now. I just have that sort of general sense, that it's kind of
No, you're right. I mean,
catch as catch can.
Yeah, no, it's due to resources and other assets that we're working on. This has been a big project that's been pushed, but
Yeah.
it needs to come to the forefront.
Yeah.
you know, this is the part where we're pivoting to outreach in our marketing, and I don't think it's been done really at all with Avtex. And there are considerations now that we have, you know, the traffic going in and out of the Avtex site would be a challenge depending on what you put in there.
Yeah.
And so there are limitations, I think, that we need to anticipate and then try to come up with, okay, here are groupings of things that could go there. You can put an office building on 117 acres. You can put a bunch of them if you so choose. But you need to be thinking about, if you put industrial in there and you had big trucks coming in and out, how do they get out of here? How do they get into here? All things that would make it, you know, a lot more problematic. So I think those are things that we can enhance the plan as we have it and go site by site and come up with it. So, Jim, I would task you with the marketing budget and see if we can at least get something preliminary that we can talk about next week.
That's easy, because I just have to ask Scott, what does he want?
Yeah, there you go. But also, that I would put in things like some of the rehab things.
Yeah, yeah.
For doing that, so
Yeah.
those would be,
Something also, it might be just as you're developing that budget, is there brownfield consultants out there that really,
That's a, very good
they
idea.
really know how to operate and work with these types of properties. And
okay, next, and it's related to this, but for the agenda for the February 25th meeting, I just began to jot things down and wanted to go over them. I think that the budget is obviously one. I'd like to talk about a strategic plan working session. There are questions that it would be great to put to the group, and I think there's great value in having the group actually meet. It has been a little over a year since we have met on that, so I think it makes sense to try to come up with a time in March where we can get together and do that.
May I just add
Sure.
that because that's an open session, we can't tailor it to make sure everybody can come, but I want to make sure we invite the supervisors or staff or whoever you all want to have come to that thing, so that we may not be on the same page, but at least we've seen the same book.
Right, we definitely want to do that. Well, it's an open session, so I think depending on what the interest is, we may have it down at the county administrative buildings and do it there.
That's good.
Those, we can't limit it.
Right,
So,
right.
people come, are certainly more than welcome to do that. Okay, other things that I at least wanted to think about putting on the agenda, is it worth considering a change to our name? Currently, we're the Front Royal Warren County Economic Development Authority. There is now a Front Royal Economic Development Authority. It strikes me, setting aside the legal responsibilities that the town of Front Royal has to this EDA, and not in any way changing that, isn't something that I have not asked Sharon how difficult it is to do that. But at least wanted to raise the possibility of just changing it to the Warren County EDA so that we don't have confusion when people are asking what the overlapping responsibilities are. There is clearly overlapping interest in that.
Are we gonna put that on our agenda for our next regular meeting then? To ask Sharon to give her advance notice to comment on that?
Yeah, I will do so. Is this something that, at least in the executive committee, we think is worth exploring?
Yeah, I have my opinion on that, but I think it's worth exploring, and I'll express that opinion at the more appropriate time.
Okay. So I will ask Sharon, if it's bordering on impossible, maybe that's an answer right there. But if it's something that we could do, then I think it's something that we have at least consider as we look at it. Fourth, and we'll get to this in a few minutes, but just talking about working with the town, working with the town's EDA. We'll get to that as a fourth topic. We're going to obviously have, and I don't think we can discuss it in any detail here, but we will have a closed session. So I'd encourage anything that you have. It's probably mostly Greg talking about properties and anything that we want in the closed session as we move forward. Are there any other immediate things on that we need to put into the agenda at this point? Any things that we want to focus on? I do want to spend a decent amount of time on the budget, so I think that's an important issue.
As it relates to general topics for next week's agenda?
Yeah, we're open, yeah. And closed, then just send them to me.
Yeah, of course. I'll let Jim go first while I still think.
I don't have anything, I don't have anything else. Joe, you're locked in, right? You have like handcuffs to this job?
Yeah, so yeah, just to kind of clarify the role in my position, so I was appointed the Director of Economic Development for the county. It's a new position. My boss is Taryn, and then Ed, and then obviously the Board of Supervisors. But the task and the charge of the department is to obviously work closely with the Warren County EDA. I will be going to the Front Royal EDA meeting today. Obviously working with Discover Front Royal for tourism, Chamber of Commerce, all these organizations. It's kind of my job to bridge that gap and work with them. So I'll be working, right now my main goal is planning. I'm still interim planning director. That's my day-to-day. That's very important until we have a replacement there. So that's my main focus currently. We have a lot of tasks there that are still ongoing. But yes, but once that gets through, this is the number one priority is economic development for Warren County. And that is a collaboration with you all as your board and with the town and to continue to move forward that vision. But this is a newly appointed position. And again, my direct supervisor is Dr. Daly at the county. So I will be meeting with Matt Robertson today to go through budget. The county had a work session the other week about it. I just haven't been able to, Matt and I scheduled work out, but we will be getting together today too to kind of go through the budget items to get up to speed on that. Because again, frankly, the priority's been planning at this time because we've had a lot of big conditional use permits and comp plan review and stuff. But hopefully that full transition will happen sooner than later. And then there'll obviously be more dialogue, I think, with you all and other folks. So.
And just to clarify, is the budget that you presented to the working group is That's just for your department, but not for EDA?
So I believe they have two different budgets, and that's what
Yeah.
Matt and I will be going through. There'll be like, obviously, the Department of Economic Development for the county, and then an EDA budget. So those are the things that we'll be going through, and I'll get a better understanding of what that looks like today, so.
Well, is that something that you ought to be talking with Jim about?
And it sounds like, Jim, you've already been chatting with Matt a little bit.
Just a little bit, we are only at the stage of
Yeah.
talking about what are the line items.
Correct, and I
We're
think-
not talking numbers yet.
And I think that'll obviously be a conversation that once, I think even Matt himself kind of starts to get into it a little more, we'll have a better understanding, we'll
Right.
probably have a meeting together on that.
Yeah.
So,
But I think it's very important that we get the board's, at least direction of where we want to go, and if there are budget items, to at least to ask for them as we move forward. Greg?
thanks. Thanks for that explanation. So that lends a lot of questions on my end. And there's too many for me to even think about right now, but just off the cuff, I had sent you some information yesterday. This board hasn't really been fully privy to that structure until you had just explained it to us 10 seconds ago, which is fine. If we have needs, who do they go to? Do they go to Taryn? Do they go to Ed? Do they go to you?
They either directly go to me, and obviously, again, I do have a boss that I report to, but yes, I will be that contact for you all.
And do we have a clear understanding as a board how that division of labor actually looks?
As,
For example, most of our properties are in town. We have properties that we're currently in the throes of disposing of out in the county. Where does the support start and or end, or decide on what level of support that we get from the newly appointed department that you are now running?
in specific to like maybe town properties, because
It could be any property.
yeah.
Any property.
So, yeah, I mean, we're gonna be fully supportive of any properties, and obviously, I think coming from a planning background, we'll work closely with obviously whoever the planning director is, working closely with the town planning department to promote that. And obviously, we're gonna have to figure out what the role of the Front Royal EDA is gonna be, and how they would be involved for, properties that you own within town limits. That's something else that hopefully we'll have a better understanding of today as well. But I think we're just gonna have to kind of work through that process and figure it out. Hasn't clearly been defined yet, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I think it's important that we understand that, the devil is in the details. And that we, as we look forward, is just understanding how it's different. It's a very different thing than we were told. Originally, the deal was that the two employees who were EDA employees were just gonna become county employees, everything would stay the same. Now it's substantially different than that.
Yeah,
And-
and that's not your fault. I mean,
Right.
that's a communication issue between the board of supervisors, the administration, and the EDA, which hasn't occurred.
Right, but it's just understanding those things, and I think we've talked about, and we just haven't had the bandwidth to do much with it, but perhaps an MOU is something that we should have with the county, so that we understand what's at play here. So. That'll be something we'll talk about next week then as well. So Jim, you're gonna send out, I would urge you to put in what you have on the strategic plan, that everyone review it with a view to looking at it from a budgeting standpoint as to what things either that are in the plan that need funding, or things that we might consider that should be in the plan that might need funding.
I'll try to get something back from Matt, not necessarily today, but, what is today, Thursday? By close of business on Monday, so we can have something in addition to this draft plan. If I don't, I will find and send the current budget, which is what, a year and a half old,
Right,
attached, just so people have a general idea.
yeah.
I'll see if I can find it.
Okay, anything else on that? I'm sure there are other agenda items, but if I could get them, I prefer them tomorrow. So if you all can come in with agenda items that we need to include, and then we'll finalize it Monday. And we will be meeting in person for that meeting. More than likely, I would have it at the government center. And so just making sure we have a place to do it, so.
I can make sure that I can reserve a caucus room likely, and if we need to use we have a computer there if we need to pull anything up as well.
Right, yeah, and I think that's a great spot if we can get it.
Yep, I'll
Do you, is there something, I can certainly make a call, or you?
when I get back, I'll just put it in the book.
Okay.
And obviously, if it's unavailable, we also have the administration conference room, the same kind of stuff.
Right, a little smaller.
A little smaller, but still active. So
Yeah.
yeah, when I get back, I'll take a look at this.
Okay.
Get back.
So,
And so our meeting is on the 25th, is that right, the Friday?
correct.
Yeah, okay.
And what I can do is go ahead, book out all the other meetings for now,
Sure.
pencil them in for the caucus room, because we have all the dates, I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, because I think, I mean, that would change if our numbers are going down, and it's good news at this point. If they keep going down, there's no reason not to come back here. But at least for the time being, I'd rather have more space and just be cautious as we move forward.
So real quick, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, our last few meetings, we really lacked on an administrator's report. Are you gonna be handling that for Ed?
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the agreement. Obviously, they were on Zoom, so we were recording the meetings, and then I was taking notes, and that'll be part of, I feel like, my role. I know Jory's kind of been helping, and I worked with her in the last meeting, but that will be something I believe that's going to be part of my role, is to do the administration, kind of secretary of the meeting for it. So I'd be happy to take that on.
Well, I was talking more specifically about, in the past, we've always had a very successful county administrator's report, bringing to information.
Oh, for like a report in the
Yeah,
agenda.
it was usually a 2 or 3 page report. I mean,
Yeah.
initially it was the town and the county, and now that does seem to.
And I know Dr. Daly's kind of done some of this, so I will get with him on how, if he wants to come through his office or directly to me. But we can obviously have a report for each agenda, and that's not.
You know, as a board member, I find that incredibly helpful to know what was happening throughout the county, you know, outside the confines of this room.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all. Yeah, we can obviously continue to do that moving forward.
Anything else on agenda or strategic plan, other than the town of Front Royal EDA? Our relations with them. Okay, that's the last open session item. As Joe mentioned, he's going to be going to the town EDA meeting at noon. Stephen Hicks sent him an invitation yesterday after we met, and I think that's a good, healthy sign. It's always awkward when you have a new entity coming into a space, and I think that it's our part of our responsibility to make it as easy and to make the how we work on things together as clear as possible, with the hopes that we can work together. I mean, we have said all along that this is one geographical area, and people who come here look at it from that standpoint. So we have two entities. So to me, it's less about the words that we use and more about the actions that we take. And I think it's important that we show a willingness to work with the town EDA. As I said, Joe's going to go to their meeting today, and I would love to see progression and we've had no discussions on it, but progression in this area where a member of their board or executive director comes to our meetings and vice versa. That's symbolic, but nonetheless is useful from a coordination standpoint. I would also like to try to look for things that we can work together on and get comfortable with working together. A couple of ideas that have come to mind. One is seeing if we could work with their EDA on a restaurant week. That we have restaurants in town, we've got restaurants out in the corridor. Could we perhaps with the chamber and the two EDAs put on something like that? Mm-hmm. So you're doing the advertising, you're doing the promotion of it, you're getting someone to work with the restaurants to come up with something, but just to gauge interest in it. That's one area. Another area, very successful, this would have been 2020, what we did the property open house for the commercial real estate group. We had a small group of realtors participate. They all loved it. We ended up selling 2 properties because of it. And I would like to do that in conjunction with the Front Royal EDA if they're interested in doing it, and try to get some buzz with it and get some folks involved. A third area that it seems to me that would be really helpful to work on is to share our strategic plan with them and try to work together so that we're basically on the same page. And it's nothing more complex than that in the process. This isn't necessarily to say we're like 2 parts of the same entity. We are separate agencies as we look at it, but I think it's incumbent on us to offer a way that we can work coherently together. So I'd love to get impressions of the executive committee on that part to it, and if you have any ideas, we could.
I think if we could schedule or plan an industrial tour, we went to Cisco a couple of weeks ago and toured the majority of that facility.
Yeah. And
I found it absolutely fascinating. I've never been it's been a long time since I've been in a redistribution center, but it really helped me understand and appreciate what they do and the impact that it has on the local economy and for the entire region. And getting in and touching and feeling that, figuratively lends a different or new perspective as to what actually happens behind those doors, and how it's all integrated within the entire community. And I know these industries are busy and they might not have the people for a tour around the facility to show and demonstrate what they do, but I have a new appreciation for forklift and pickers drivers. And I didn't realize that old forklift systems ran on hydrogen yeah, it was an eye opener. It was a tremendous learning experience for myself. I mean, we do business with Cisco in town, and currently with our Ball Drive property, and they're certainly been a very good addition to the community with their redistribution center. I think it would be nice to have those outreach and those tours with some of the other larger employers as well.
For those of you that go to Costco, if you think of Costco and then you multiply that by 20 or 30 times, that begins to give you a concept of what this half-mile long warehouse is like. There are customers getting in the way of the forklift, so they're going really fast, but they were, just while we sat there for what, 10, 15 minutes, we must have seen 20 different forklifts come roaring by and doing that. It is impressive. I think that's a good idea to.
And I didn't realize that they have an actual rail, inside their building where rail cars come in.
Oh,
And they offload. Granted, it's a very small portion of their distribution efforts, but that building was designed for rail access. They have a separate company that has to come in and bring the rail cars in, and they're all refrigerated, and then they pick them out. And, it's a pretty interesting. Logistics is a pretty interesting operation.
Yeah. So these are all things that I think as we move ahead, I'd like to be able to maintain a dialogue with the town on these things. And in my view, there isn't anything that isn't worth discussing. Here she is.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right. We appointed you to do everything.
Yep. And I'm taking notes to prove it.
And we said, Jory, do you have any problem? We didn't hear anything.
Didn't hear anything from Kate, and so it just worked out. Thank you all for your indulgence. I did leave my husband in the car.
Okay. We will be brief, so we don't
Oh,
go
no,
out
it's okay. He's fine,
Okay.
I just took the chloroform. I'm gonna,
Oh,
no. Shouldn't say that. Oh, sorry about that.
So we were just wrapping up the open session, and I was just talking about with a new EDA in Front Royal, just things that we need to think about, and I wanted to see that the executive committee was my view is that we want to reach out to try to work together to be effective, to work from the same page to the extent that we can, and just to be welcoming and to be optimistic that we can work together, and let's see what we can do.
Did we talk about?
Yes.
Restaurant week? Oh, so we did talk about maybe doing a restaurant week or
Yeah.
something along. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great.
So Joe, I don't know if you want to, I'll leave it to you how you present. He's going to the town's, Fort Royal's, their EDA, Frida, I guess, their meeting today, and is going to introduce himself. Steve Hicks sent him an invite yesterday, so all good, all good progress on it. So whatever you want to bring to that when you talk to him.
Yeah, I think it's important, obviously, right now, the county's going through a comp plan review, and the town is as well. We're going to collaborate on that effort, and I think economic development has its own chapter, but, that's an important part of the comp plan. It's going to be part of that discussion. So again, there's collaboration efforts happening there. I think you're correct in that your strategic plans should have some collaboration as well. Obviously, you are going to have some distinct differences for some of that aspect, but I think overall, they should be very similar. I have reviewed, I know the previous tour that you guys did, I have that book on my desk, and I remember when it took place. I don't remember all the details, obviously, at that time, but, I think, obviously, open it up to what properties you have available, but I think this idea of like Cisco and this business retention, we do have a lot of great businesses there, and to keep that dialogue open and that understanding with them is important as well as just marketing new spaces. So I think, ideas like getting with Cisco or the Exaltas or the Fergusons are important as well, making sure we're engaged. So I like that idea.
Yeah. And then just a final thing is that I think as we look at economic development, we want to be advocates for things that are necessary. So whether it's utilities or rezoning or whatever it is that we be advocate for things that are going to improve our ability to attract businesses here or to help existing businesses grow. And that very much involves the town. Anything in the town is town utilities, town electrical. Out in the corridor, it's town water. Those are all things that are critical to our ability to grow and to try to encourage looking at it, coordinating with the town. I think is one of our roles as advocates for economic development. So that's my 2 cents. I'll probably have some version of this next Friday, but just wanted to make sure if you started to boo, I perhaps would have a different.
Did we touch on, and then I can catch up with you with strategic plan, but did we touch on workforce as far as strategic plan?
Go ahead and say whatever you want.
No, we do, I haven't talked about workforce. It's in there, I know we've got some words about workforce in the
You
plan.
know, it was just interesting on the front page, as I'm leaving this morning early, that we have so many jobs here that are going unfilled. So that automatically, you know, over 3,000 jobs is, you know, in this region. And it was on the front page of the Northern Virginia Daily today. I haven't had a chance to do the deep dive into the article. But, you know, that if you have that many jobs that are available, that is concerning that we don't have the workforce, you know, and how do we get the workforce?
Yeah,
And
of course
what
it
do we do?
depends. It depends industry by industry.
Then they were talking about food and, you know, that's what I glanced at. So we definitely want to make sure that we get ourselves in that kind of position. So where we're working, and I know that was near and dear to your heart, was workforce. So, you know, I just wanted to make sure that that was up there along with the tourism. And, you know what, I came in late, we can catch up later, we can move on.
A lot of what we focused on the strategic plan was how it affects the budget. So if we have things, primarily marketing and maintenance repair, that we get them in to help shape the budget. And then we talked about doing a retreat probably in March, before the March meeting, to not a retreat, a working session.
Work session.
Not a retreat, we work. And that we would be, have something where we can get together and get some whiteboards and kind of go over the entire plan, because there've been just enough things that we need to do it. And if we need to assign people to do things, we'll do that. As we shape our plan moving forward. I don't have anything else on the open agenda. Does anyone else have anything? Okay.
Oh, I got here in time then.
Yeah.
Okay. I move we go into closed session to discuss 2 matters: disposition of publicly held real estate, where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. Aptex, CCAP lease, and 426 Ball Drive, according to VA Code 2.23711.A.3 and 8. Also, 2 matters: consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual probable, not with counsel, but for us to discuss actual or update probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open session would adversely affect the negotiating litigating position of the public body. Update EDA versus Town of Front Royal and Town of Front Royal versus EDA pursuant to code 2.23711.A7 and 8. Is there a motion?
Is there a motion?
Also move.
Second?
Harold seconds.
Roll call. Brown eye.
Harold, aye.
Martin, aye.
Wolf, aye.
We are in closed session.